Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Hello Muslim friends of the world. Islam is the third largest religion practiced by the people of the United States. In the United States, the population who embrace Islam is estimated to be around 3.3 million from various ages and groups. If you look closely, Islam in the United States has quite a long history. The following is the history of the beginning of the arrival of Islam in the United States and its development. Since the 16th century, there have been records of Muslims living in the United States. Historians note that Islam entered the United States through the Arizona region in Northern America and New Mexico. In the early 1520s, many slaves were sent to America to work on various farms. Historians estimate that around 40,000 Muslims were sent to the United States as slaves. Meanwhile, the total number in the Americas reaches 3 million Muslims. Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, Estevanico, and Azamar are thought to be the first Muslims to enter the United States. The Estevanicos were Berbers from North Africa who went to Arizona and New Mexico as slaves for the Spanish Empire. Meanwhile, Azamar and Núñez were slaves from Spain, who were remnants of the Islamic influence that once ruled Spain. However, in its development, many Muslim slaves in the U.S. chose to change religions due to environmental influences. Muslim immigrants who come on a large scale to the United States come from Syria, Jordan, Palestine, and other regions of the Middle East. These Muslim immigrants are thought to have arrived in the United States from around 1875 to 1912. The first mosque in America was built in Chicago in 1893, which is thought to have been erected as a replica of the Sultan Qaitbay Mosque in Cairo. Meanwhile, the second mosque in America was only built in 1921 in Highland Park, Michigan. Then, after World War I ended and the collapse of Ottoman Turkey in the 20th century, there was massive Muslim immigration from the Middle East. This phenomenon is also influenced by Western colonialism in the Middle East. Muslims choose to migrate to the United States because it is considered a country that guarantees freedom and human rights. They then formed communities in various American states. In the 1920s and 1930s, many black people of African American descent chose to convert to Islam as a result of racial problems in the U.S. There are more and more Islamic organizations in America, and U.S. Muslims are starting to enter the world of politics. After mass immigration in 1924, the United States government then established immigration regulations for Muslims. In this regulation, it is stated that there will be restrictions on immigration waves by imposing quotas on country of origin or immigrant group origin. One of the quotas given is for countries from the Middle East, where the majority are Muslim. However, seeing the continued migration entering the United States, President Lyndon Johnson then abolished the quota system. Turbulent economic and political factors in their home countries are the main reasons Muslims move to the United States. Generally, Muslim immigrants who come to the U.S. are educated, rather than immigrants who came in previous periods. At first, Islam was considered the religion of Middle Eastern immigrants. However, gradually, Islam increasingly developed in the United States. Islam flourished in America as a result of the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1965. It is estimated that more than 1.1 million new Muslims arrived in the United States before the end of the 20th century. In the United States, there is also an Islamic organization which became known as the World Community of Islam in the West in 1976. Together with this organization, the development of Islam is getting better. Anti-racist dawah is carried out as stated in Islamic teachings. The development of Islam in the United States is also evidenced by the establishment of the Islamic Institute in Chicago, which is a project of the International Islamic Conference Organization based in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. In Los Angeles, there is also an Islamic Center, which is used as a center for Islamic scholarship and other activities. The development of Islam in the United States is also evidenced by the presence of several figures who embraced Islam, such as Malcolm and boxer Muhammad Ali. Malcolm and Muhammad Ali also preached Islam in the United States. With its various developments, Islam in the United States increasingly has a special place in local society. American Muslims are also considered capable of making a major contribution to development progress. It turns out that America, which has long been known as the center of disbelief, apparently knew about Islam first before the spreaders of other religions from Europe took control of the country. The American continent as we know it today apparently has a very strong historical relationship with Islam. This can be seen from the many traces of remains that we can still see today. One of them is a trace of the names of areas that are synonymous with the Islamic religion. Apart from that, Islam had also become a cultural tradition in America until it finally became extinct and was converted by Christian missionaries from Europe. Islam is the third largest religion practiced by the people of the United States. In the United States, the population who embrace Islam is estimated to be around 3.3 million from various ages and groups. So, if you look closely, it turns out that Islam in the United States has quite a long history. Well, here are some facts about America, the Muslim continent being apostate, quoted from various sources. There are many versions of bringing Islam to America, one of which is Kashkash bin Said bin Aswad, who was recorded in history in the year 889 AD as having landed on the continent. He was a Muslim navigator who came from Córdoba, Spain. It is known that Spain was the center of Islamic civilization in the West under the leadership of the Umayyad Caliphate, crossing the Atlantic Ocean. This Muslim sailor was listed as one of the carriers of Islam to the United States, only 200 years after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. History also records that Admiral Chung Ho, who was a Muslim, also landed on the American continent, where he, who was a Muslim preacher, landed 70 years earlier than Columbus. In fact, Chung Ho's fleet and ships were much larger than Columbus' ships. However, because world history was written by other people, the fact that Chung Ho was earlier than Columbus seemed to disappear behind an obvious lie. This ship has been recorded in the archipelago, having traded and spread the message of Islam. Chung Ho had an Arabic name, namely Haji Mahmud Sham. A piece of stone was discovered in a cave in the Corinto region of El Salvador. This Malacca Haji Malaya inscription bearing has been identified as a 13th century inscription indicating the arrival of Muslims in South America, possibly coming from somewhere in the Indonesian area. Professor Barry Fell, read, Historical Biography from Wikipedia, a retired lecturer from Harvard University and also a member of the American Academy of Science and Arts, the Royal Society, the Epigraphic Society and the Society of Scientific Discovery and Antiquities, insists on the arrival of Islam in America in 650 and Two predictions of this opinion on Kufic calligraphy is a civilization found in various excavations throughout the Americas. If Professor Fell's words have any truth, then Muslims arrived in America during the era of Caliph Uthman, or at least during the time of Ali, the fourth caliph. There are many people who have tried to research the early history of Islam's arrival in America, perhaps including Professor Barry Fell, a lecturer who has retired from Harvard University. He emphasized that in the 650s, Muslims arrived in America, and of course there was a reason why the professor dared to say this. This was because of Kufic calligraphy. If this is true, it means that during the era of Caliph Uthman, Muslims had set foot in America. The discovery of the inscription in the name of Allah by Professor Fell is considered as evidence that America is a Muslim country that has apostatized. If you check and look carefully at the findings of this inscription, you will come to the conclusion that the object is not in a modern Arabic style and instead contains a modern Arabic style. Kufic is closely related to the writing style of the 7th century.